I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we dive into the emotional journey of intercultural marriage with one of my favorite authors, Rose Clayworth. She has penned a powerful book. It is called The Fault Beneath Us. This compelling story explores how one woman navigates the challenges of reshaping her identity in a new social, cultural, linguistic, and geographical landscape. It is a profound look at love, identity, and the complexities of bridging different worlds. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Rose, thanks so much for being our guest here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. It's wonderful to speak with you.
Great to have you back on the show. This book is part of a trilogy, correct?
It is, yes. It started a little like Star Wars. I began with my third book,
That's
and
funny.
I'm working on a fourth, so I haven't stopped. But the third book, which you and I talked about earlier in life, a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I think, is quite complex to read because I've got a flashback narrative going on and a present narrative, the two Gulf Wars, Arabian Gulf Wars. And it's obviously slightly political, although still concerned with emotions and human life, because the subtitle is Heartache in Wartime. So I really enjoyed that interview with you. But I actually began this trilogy by reflecting on my own emotional state at the time. I was extremely depressed. I'm here in New Zealand, and I had come here by choice, had applied for a job, a teacher developer job, and obtained it, moved here with support of friends, and I had done the requirements for a superannuation, a pension scheme here, jointly supported by the UK government, because I was entitled to a pension much earlier in the UK. But I delayed it because, as I tell people, we have an Australian accent that says today, to die. I came here to die, but not today. I came
That's
here
funny.
intend to end my life here because I had, and hopefully not yet,
Yeah.
because I had lost my mother in the UK.
Mm.
And she is a part of this trilogy because the very first book illustrates, not in detail, I haven't written these books to harm anyone. It's to help people, in fact, to see we can learn through what we call vicarious learning. Reading is the greatest tool to learning, I think. And
Yeah.
if children
Yeah.
can learn to read early, they can escape their present environment if they don't like it, and they can
Exactly.
find that there are options. In fact, when I was little, I used to hope I was adopted and that my real family would come and find me.
That's funny.
So be
That's funny.
careful what you give your children to read.
That is
Anyway,
funny.
to my mother, she was severely crippled with rheumatoid arthritis
Mm.
from her mid-30s,
Huh.
and um, she had had an emotional turmoil in her life. She had left my father,
Hmm.
my sibling, and I, and then we became three siblings. And she never complained at all about her life. She had made some choices that had caused her a lot of pain and caused other people, my father, a lot of pain. But she was good to us. She cared for us. We children had nothing to complain about. So I wrote the first book about my childhood and about what had happened, because divorce and breakup happens to so many people, both those in the limelight and those who never dreamed of celebrity. And it's so horrible, to witness what happens to everyone in a breakup. So I had, at the end of my first book, which is called From Coal to Sand, because my father was a coal miner and we lived in a coal mining village in Derbyshire in England. Um, at the end of the book, despite all my protestations about never getting married, leading an independent life, getting a good education, which I was very lucky as a working class child to attain university education, thanks to the Labour government of the time, which gave free tuition and free accommodation. Of course, I worked to support myself.
Yeah.
But the first book, I've had a lot of feedback from people with similar backgrounds, people who've grown up, baby boomers post World War II. They've
Hmm.
had lots of similar experiences. So it's a nice, easy read.
Yeah.
But there's the cliffhanger of, yes, she's getting married. Her honeymoon is in Egypt.
Uh,
She's off to the sand.
yeah.
Now, Logan, I'm aware of our time, so please give me a hand signal.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the second book title, The Fault Beneath Us, is a play on words. Living over in, I'm not sure if you're in California or on the East Coast, but people who live in California know all about the San
Yeah.
Andreas. And we have a big fault here in New Zealand, just off the East Coast where I am based. And in
Mm.
fact, the Pacific Ring of Fire, is prone to faults in the land, which cause earthquakes and volcanoes under the sea, which cause tsunamis. So we're all very aware, I'm sure, of the geographical and geological dangers we live in, but we're maybe not quite so aware of the faults that we ourselves might make. Um, as I say, my mother had a sort of, you know, decision she made, which she never admitted was a fault, and which I'm sure she wondered about. She never talked about it to us. She just cared for us and had to work as a solo mother very hard, despite her crippled joints, carrying shopping bags with arms at right angles, 90
Yeah.
degrees.
God.
She could be horrific. So I chose this title because when I started, I had already left my husband.
Hmm.
I had had a long relationship, 20 years together and 6 years fighting a divorce because I had married a very urbane, a very sophisticated Roman Catholic, but Roman Catholic veering on Greek, not the Rome that we know, but following Rome, as they say in the Middle East. And he's deceased. And all names have been changed, and I don't intend any harm to the family at all. But I married and went to a country, honeymooned in Egypt, and went to live in Kuwait, which I had never visited, and where in 1990 our marital life ended with Gulf War One when Saddam Hussein invaded and followed up about 6 months later with him being removed with the war.
Mm.
So the problem from the beginning, I don't want to reveal everything about it,
Yeah.
but the problem from the beginning, I have a counselor friend. She counsels tertiary students, and she has seen through the words the situation. I thought I was marrying somebody who understood that independence was my guiding strength, and education was my means to achieve it. But and from the moment I arrived, fortunately, I had had an insurance policy. I had obtained a job in Kuwait, and I'm not going to say where, but it will be obvious if anyone reads it where. It's a very good institution, and I was in a very good position. So luckily, I could go to my job after we arrived in Kuwait, and the family threw us out.
Mm.
We had to go and stay in a hotel with neither one of us having any real money. But
Mm.
2 days later, after the weekend, I could go to my place of work and ask for my salary in advance. You can imagine the humiliation
Yeah.
of one who has done this. So the book is a chronology, but with some fun, with some interesting, it's like a travelogue, really, because we traveled a lot. But in retrospect, I could see that I was being rewarded for good behavior,
Yeah.
for doing what I was supposed to in the family. I had lots of friends in the ESOL teaching world who had gone out there as independent young women and were not expected to do anything except have fun outside work, whereas I
Mm.
was supposed to go to the family, of course, and I wished to. I
Yeah.
tried to assimilate. I mean, I learned Arabic, and I could see eventually that the reason I had married was to have a family, and we
Hmm.
weren't. family. And that is in the book as well. I'm not going to talk about that. But by the time the Gulf War happened, I felt I was clinging on to something that really was not what I wanted. And as I didn't have anyone else to worry about, except my disabled mother, who was still in the UK and who had willingly wanted me to leave home and go and live elsewhere. Of course, I went back every year, and she came out 3 times and lived with us in Kuwait and loved. The heat was great for her joints. But by the end, I'm afraid the Gulf War opened my eyes. The terrible thing was it set me free from what had become a cage, really. So I think other people who've made mistakes in choosing a partner, they think they know what they're getting into. They may well see, yes, before I make a choice, I must ask a few more questions or think a bit about it. And I will say, be careful who you ask for advice, because you don't know what their motivations are. I sometimes wonder if my mum really wanted grandchildren. It's strange to think that, but she never said, and she's passed, of course. The reason I came here was she passed away very unexpectedly from septicemia. And so I didn't even get back to be at her deathbed. And it's been 20 years since that happened, and 22 years actually. And I can talk about it without crying now. But, these emotions, all these choices you have to make. And I mean, my time in Kuwait was fabulous, really, in retrospect. It doesn't matter that I made a mistake. I'm sorry I hurt my partner, my husband. But, I also gave him an insurance policy. I didn't marry in the Catholic Church. I refused to. We married in a registry office in Fulham in London because I don't believe in hellfire, I'm afraid. I don't believe in retribution, which is why the politics of today are so hurtful to me, that Putin thinks that Britain set up, the Ukraine to attack him, and madness. Yeah. Israel and the Middle East, the violence is so unnecessary on all sides.
Yeah.
Have I worn you out?
No, not at all. No, it's fascinating. It's interesting stuff. You are a born storyteller, of course. And, obviously the intercultural differences in your marriage opened your eyes to a lot of things, let you see a different side of life. There were some parts of it that you appreciated, of course, some parts of it that, in a interpersonal relationship, of course, were challenging. What do you hope readers take away from it?
Well, I hope they see that, my epilogue is about the sociology concept of agency. In our identity, we can change, we can have different facets. That's how we have different friends who suit different aspects of our personality. But we, as human beings, we don't need just to react to situations or just give up or decide that our life is not worth living. I mean, suicide is huge now in New Zealand. A lot of very unhappy situations in which people think the only solution is to either kill my partner, a big case is going on at the moment, a horrific case, or kill myself. And it isn't necessary. One should take one's own life in one's own hands and say, look, what can I do? And get out if you need to. Now, very often, especially for women in domestic abuse situations, the issue is finances. But now there are many agencies, Women's Refuge, where you can go, and even pets need refuges now, because often a vicious partner will take it out on a pet. So I can't say I have all the answers for people, but my own situation, I made a very hard decision, and I suffered psychosomatically. I had terrible back pain once I had decided I was not going back. And my mother said, do not go back, because of course there is a death threat involved. And I don't know if he meant it, but for a Christian to say that after all the years I tried, and I gave up so much, and I speak fluent Arabic.
Amazing.
And maybe they didn't really like that because, you know, as Palestinians, Britain helped remove their country, their homeland, to which they cannot return, not
Yeah.
ever. So there's lots of faults, and some of them are mine. I don't accept them all. But there was no earthquake.
Right. Exactly. Which
one,
the
one of
book
the one in our
title,
emotional life, yes.
yes, absolutely. The book is called The Fault Beneath Us. It's a compelling story that explores how one woman navigates the challenges of reshaping her identity in a new social, cultural, linguistic, and geographical landscape. It is a profound look at love, identity, and the complexities of bridging different worlds. Rose, thanks so much for sharing your story with us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much, Logan. I've really enjoyed it, and it's like the jewel in my crown. I have a website, roseclayworth.com, and on the first book, I kind of went to town talking about the first book, although it's tiny and such an easy read. But I spoke to three women who were in your media business, and that was enjoyable. It helped to affirm me as a writer because that was my debut. And then again, I spoke to you about book three, and now book two has its own little chat. So, you know, I do hope some people will feel like reading it, or just go to my website and have a look where there's some background information, especially some amusing cultural background and, you know, not just amusing, I mean, information about dhow building, which is the boat type in Kuwait. So I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Logan.
My pleasure. I enjoyed speaking with you. Always do. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.